Another thing is, I'm not really down with the ethnic aspects of folk music. Ethno-folk musicology, it's called. And I don't like that ethno in there. I think that's the least interesting part of it. And to me that, just drips with colonialism and like all that. And I don't think it behooves us in the modern world to think of ourselves as anything other than human beings, you know. We have very different experiences from each other because of where we come from and what cultures we've grown up with and all that. And good for that. That means we all have different information to contribute. But the idea that this defines us or limits us in some way really offends me. As we're being suckers if we think that who we are from some racial or national basis, that makes us different from one another. That's probably the least important thing about anybody. And I'm not saying, telling a white boy, Gil, that's my problem. I don't feel ashamed of that either. I don't. But it's not something to be proud of, that you had this set of ancestors instead of that set of ancestors. That's stupid. Who are you? Who are you? Like right now, what can you contribute to the right now? And I think the identifying music, for convenience, yeah, I talk about Indian music, but I don't mean that ethnically. I mean that they play on those instruments and those traditions of theories that have come into them. Or talk about, Chinese music or Middle Eastern music or whatever, those are identifiers, and they're, they locate where things originated geographically or whatever, but I don't really give a damn what the people look like who made this music. I want to listen to it and understand how they were dealing with sound. And the same way that I don't like the concept of folksiness as nostalgic, I really hate it when it's kind of supportive of these jingo ideas, because like ideas of nationalities and ethnicities, like that's just bigot shit to me. That's I'm not going to admire some ethnic group of people for any reason. There's there aren't better people than other people. There's just people, and there may be a lot of good ones over here at some time. There were really great French symbolist poets that, in 1870s, but that doesn't mean that like French people of the 1870s were more symbolic than anybody else anywhere in the world. It's yeah, that really bugs me as a concept. Leave the ethno out of the folk musicology. Think about what's important in music is the aesthetics and methodologies and like that. It really isn't what color they were or anything like that. It makes perfect sense that people who have a lot of goats would make instruments that required parts of goat bodies. But that's as far as it goes. And it makes sense that, you know, people who live in the post-industrial West world, like, you know, which probably accounts for most people on Earth now, you know, we don't have goats, we got a lot of metal. And that doesn't really care, like, who, you know, who we thought, what we thought about deities or, you know, all that stuff is, just sort of ancillary. It's, it just really isn't important. Does this music sound good? Is this interesting? Does this go somewhere? Like, can I learn from this? Those are what we should ask about folk music, not like, well, my great-grandparents were Lithuanian and this is their old song. Perfectly cool to know that, you know, but it doesn't make you any different if that was true. You know, if you were there and you knew this song, cool. If you learned it from your grandfather, well, that's cool too. You know, that went into who you became. But who you became was really about you relating to the world. It wasn't about your great-grandfather or anything. So I think if we, you know, as our 99% people are, I think if we want to do something and have some, you know, power to the people stuff in the world, we need to think about what we do and who we are now. We don't, you know, let's fight over who our great-grandparents were. What a brilliant idea. Or, you know, any of that. It's, you know, I don't see that as being germane. It may be interesting, you know, and it may be inform us of understanding why we ended up in the situation. I don't think there's any limit to useful analysis, you know, like know everything you can know, find out every why and every wherefore about yourself if you want to, if it helps you feel more present where you are now, among who you're around now, and like that. Like all good, you know, but if you're identifying yourself with the past, you're useless in the present and really giving nothing to the future. Just saying, that's sort of common sense. And, you know, be who you are today as what you are today. And as what you are today is, if you're here in America, what you are today is a consumer, you know, or you know, to whatever degree you want to relate to that. It doesn't matter if you're, it doesn't matter what your grandparents did. They don't care. They're not here. Mine are long gone, you know. If yours are still around, then it matters, you know, and you get what you get from them. But that doesn't direct you toward any particular path in life, and it doesn't prevent you from taking any particular path in life. It has nothing to do with it. That's up to you. And when we think about culture and when we think about making art or whatever, we should just follow our imaginations, what we respond to, what speaks to us, for whatever reason. And to be defensive and you know, there's nothing that's going to stick us more into a world of bigotry than being afraid of appropriating. You know, I appropriate from everything that passes by my ears and across my eyes, you know, because I'm a human being and I see things and I hear things and I respond to them. If you want to, like, put me into a thing where I'm not allowed to respond to this, or where I should make a real effort to like something because, you know, somebody that looked more like me did this. Forget about it. You know, to me that's the dumbest thing in the world. And I think as long, you know, on a socio-political level, as long as our idea of folk music is that it's individuated and restricted to these little, you know, ethnic and or social groups, well, then we're going to be stuck in those ethnic and or social groups, and we got nothing, you know? Because if you're in one of these, you know, once upon a time you were in like this ethnic and social group and there was nobody else around, like, you know, you never saw anybody who wasn't in that group for your whole life. That was the old world. After the 20th century, that isn't true for anybody. You know, we all live with people from all over the place and from all kinds of backgrounds, and we have really excellent means of communicating with one another now. And so that's who we are now. We're not these isolated little groups of identities. You know, if we have an identity, yeah, okay, you're whoever you are. You know, I'm whoever I am. And it stops right there. The other stuff is, you know, sure, we'll all have stuff from our backgrounds and where we grew up and where our folks were and all that kind of stuff, but going forward, none of that has anything to do with anything. It's interesting about us, and it's, you know, it's not something we should pretend we're not, you know, but but it's like yeah, it just doesn't really have anything to do with the main thing. It's just sort of interesting other stuff. It's kind of by the way, you know. And so, yeah, so here's my slogan for that would be, let's take the ethnic out of ethno-folk musicology, and just folk musicology, and have it be about methods, and having it be about ways of appreciating sounds, and ways of appreciating the making of sounds, and finding ways to make sounds, and like that. Instead of, you know, trying to like put like there's some biological bias toward playing one way or playing another. Because you know what, that's not really true. You know, you grow up and you hear a lot of stuff, you'll have tendencies toward going to that as defaults. I certainly have a tendency to think toward 7-note scales because I grew up in the Westworld system, you know, and I have a tendency to think in 4 beats and 3 beats, you know, but I'm not stuck with those, and I don't limit all my music to being within those contexts, you know, and actually being me, I spend as much time as I can trying to push out of those contexts and those limitations. But I want to hear what everybody does with sound. I want to hear what everybody does with time. I want to hear, you know, this is music, this is cool. This is a big thing that just continually opens before us as long as we are involved with it. And so, so yeah, you know, there's, yeah, the ethnic thing bugs me, that, you know, doesn't mean you shouldn't, you know, embrace who you are, you know. I'm not pretending I'm not a white person, you know. But just because I am a white person doesn't mean like I have to go all white power on it, and which I decidedly don't want to do.